I've been dreading making this video, honestly. I've kind of put it off a little bit because I saw this. Let me see when the post was made. I saw this about 2 months ago. I realized that there was a chance that it could be true, and I didn't want to take that leap because I love Football Manager. I've spent 11,000 hours playing it. I've had so many great times playing the game, and I don't take joy in finding. I actually actively avoid attempting to find flaws in video games most of the time. Back in the old Football Managers where there were tactics that would completely break the match engine, I would intentionally like avoid internet areas where I felt like I might accidentally find out what they were, because then I would subconsciously start tilting my tactic in that direction. So this is not something that I'm reveling in, but I feel like also if there is something that is wrong with the game, it is important to take a look at it. I don't want to say wrong with the game, but if something feels broken to me, then it is important now where I am in my life, right, doing this YouTube channel, to take a look at it. And so I saw this post 2 months ago. It is titled Recruiting Pacey, Cheap, Unskilled, and Unintelligent Players to the Nottingham Forest. I don't know if that was 100% proper English, but Tony Pulis Tiki Taka, the walking dichotomy of that name, absolutely nailed it. Love this person, appreciate what they did. I'll just read the first bit of this to you because I conducted this test myself and obviously have some thoughts. The tests with a full squad of edited players with 20/20 pace and 1 out of 20 passing are all fun and interesting, but it can be hard to imagine how this would play out with real players that you can buy in FM. After all, there are no players with that much pace and so little skill. They don't exist. And that's true. I'm a part of this problem, creating a team of Usain Bolts or whatever, a team of players with 20 dribbling and 1 passing and 20 pace. I was involved in that debate. I made the video, a video talking about it, and the problem for me was always that these players don't exist in real life. So what this person thought of, which is genius, is to actually test this with the real players that you can kind of prove definitively what's going on. So what they did, and they say it here, what I did was to remove all the players in Nottingham Forest and replace them with players who had mostly 110 to 115 current ability, the exception being the goalkeeper, of course, and these players had very low technical and mental attributes but high pace. Center backs also had good jumping range. And they attached some of the players, right? In these players we've kind of attempted to replicate because I wanted to do this test as well. They set up their tactic. They actually set everything up, a 4-2-3-1 gegenpress that was wide and focusing on the flanks, which is definitely strong in FM this year. And they got some amazing results. I mean, they literally finished second in the entire league, which if you're talking about using players that look like this as your key players, you know what I mean, and players that play lower league England and lower league other places and being able to finish second in the Prem, that got my attention. So I messaged this guy. I hit him up and I sent him a message, and he basically said that, it was a while ago and he's deleted the save for whatever reason. Didn't think he needed it anymore, obviously. He'd made this post a month ago and just didn't need the save file anymore. But he also said, hey, if you go and try and do the same thing, I expect you'll get similar results. So that's what I've done. I started up a save file. I had no idea how much time this was going to take, by the way, but I started up a save file and I basically went through the entire squad and I just removed everybody. Like you just click this editing button and you just terminate contract. I removed everyone. As the coach of the team, I felt comfortable that I wasn't going to do any weird transfers, and I went back to the post. There's like 3 shots of particular matches, and you can see the team, most of the team. So I just added all of these players. I wanted to replicate this the best way that I could, right? So I am Nottingham Forest, and I'm signing all these players. I needed to sign a few other ones, but it's pretty easy to just go to the player search when you're using the editor and just search for, set a max of current ability at 116, which is on a scale of 1 to 200, by the way. So 116 is not very high. And just search for the highest pace players at each position. So, I mean, we're rocking with guys like this. 17 acceleration, 18 pace. This guy was playing at Gink. Kim Min-tae, who's playing in the Japanese league. Good jumping reach, solid pace. Satiris Alexandropoulos. I mean, this guy was playing at Olympiacos or Sporting, or I don't even know. But he's here now. He's got 16 pace and acceleration. And, generally, if you're looking at somebody that's a midfielder in the Prem, he has nothing else. This is one of the forwards that he was using. Good pace, acceleration, and strength, but nothing crazy. Guy was at West Brom before he got here. Lebahang Maboe was at the Mamelodi Sundowns in the South African League. Andrea Vukcevic was at FC Juarez in Mexico. He was playing at Rijeka in the Croatian League before that, but he has 18 pace. Koen Brommel was playing at Rotherham. There's even a guy from non-league in this team. His name's Aaron Niemann. He was at Notts County. I also also have the ever famous Tyler Maglor from Northampton, a classic lower league signing. Objectively terrible center back, but just outrageous pace. He's on this team too. Yeah, I made the necessary changes to make sure it fitted into registration. I got about 31 guys on the team, 2 extra goalkeepers and whatever. The other changes I made, I did a dry run of the simulation to see who was having adaptability issues and who was unhappy with their playing time so that I could start the simulation with everybody having the right playing time so they were at least less likely to get mad. And with everybody having high enough adaptability that we wouldn't immediately get homesick, right? Because one of these guys came straight out of the Saudi league and he'd just get homesick instantly. His adaptability was like 3 or 4. We didn't want any of that weird stuff affecting the save. And since I was the manager and I wasn't going to be managing the matches, I just went to my assistant coach and set a 4-2-3-1 defensive midfielder basic formation as his preferred formation. So that's what would be used over the course of the entire simulation. I'm trying to think if I changed anything else, but I really didn't. And you see these players, they are not Premier League quality. They are not Premier League quality in real life or, based off my whole understanding of Football Manager, Premier League quality in this game. Just for a reference point, if we go to Sheffield United, objectively the worst team in the Prem over the course of this season, you can see their team, and this is the current ability column right here. These 2 guys are out on loan. These 2 guys are youth candidates. I mean, the entire team has a higher current ability than my entire team except for the goalkeepers. Players like Jaden Bogle, I mean, that's objectively a better player than anybody else on my team. Not by a ton, right? Because we had a lot of championship players or guys playing at Gink or whatever, but these guys, they should be better. They're way better rounded. They're better in real life in all cases, but very few. But I think it's clear if this is the worst team in the Premier League, and it's already looking like if we played them, they probably beat me 60 times out of 100. There's no way we're going to have a decent season, right? Well, I ran the simulation, and even though Nottingham Forest had a 4-point penalty, it finished in 12th. This team that you just saw finished ahead of West Ham, Fulham, Sheffield United, Bournemouth, Crystal Palace, Luton Town, Wolves, and Burnley. I mean, look, they're obviously not, they didn't finish second, but the team was good. I mean, Noah Ohio was our second leading goal scorer, a guy who's made 1 appearance for Hull City and did alone at Standard Liège. Brandon Thomas Asante of West Brom was our leading goal scorer, a guy who's been a star turn at Salford. I mean, just in April, in the run-in towards the end of the season, this team drew at home against Arsenal, away against Liverpool, and at home against Manchester United. And I mean, it's not like, statistically speaking, it's not like these games are crazy. They actually had more XG because of a penalty in this game against United, but you remove the 7.7. I mean, Manchester United's not running them off the field here. Nothing about this was undeserved at all. Nottingham Forest finished 12th on the XG table with a team of exactly 0 Premier League players outside of the goalkeeper position. It was not like we put the best goalkeeper in the world back there. We put what I describe, at least in Football Manager, as an average Premier League goalkeeper in goal, and they underscored their XG by 2. And if you're somebody that's really knowledgeable about Football Manager, this doesn't come down to detail level because I'm literally managing the team. We can watch the highlights of every single one of these matches. Like, here are the goals from a 3-1 win against West Ham where they out-XG'd them by a whole goal. Like, I'm watching the goal and I'm like, it doesn't really have a lot to do with pace. And if it doesn't have a lot to do with the athletic ability of the players, that one had to do with pace. But that's just them being better than West Ham. That's just them being better than West Ham. That's them making a play where West Ham's not making a play. Now, one other additional thing I forgot to mention, I removed everybody in the Youth Academy who was above a 75 current ability so that none of the Youth Academy players would end up in the first team and kind of mess with the experiment, right? And all of the players were frozen, so their attributes didn't change over the course of the season either. We wanted this to be as constant as possible. And still, we had a couple of players upset. Like, this guy wanted, a couple people that wanted more playing time here or there. But obviously, one simulation's one simulation. It's not statistically significant. So I did do a second simulation. I did it with a completely different formation. The exact same starting parameters. I just changed the preferred formation of my assistant coach. The team finished in 11th. I switched it to a formation that technically shouldn't have been particularly helpful for what my team was trying to do. It was a 4-4-2 narrow, which is apparently what this looks like. And this is a win against Arsenal 1-0 at home and an 11th place finish for the exact same team. I did a third test back with the original parameters and Nottingham Forest managed to finish in 12th again. It's remarkable consistency over 3 different simulations, showing that a team of players that just aren't Premier League level are able to finish mid-table in the Premier League just because we're valuing pace and acceleration. I'm sorry, I played Football Manager for the last 10 years obsessively, but just when when you look at the players that are involved in this team and who's on the field, the fact that you can find a mid-table finish in the Premier League, rolling these guys out there in just whatever formation happens to be there just because they're a little more athletic than the people they're playing against. It's wild. I have mixed emotions seeing this. Obviously, 3 simulations does not a statistically significant test make, right? But 3 simulations where we finish 12th or 11th over the course of a season, no matter what the formation, is definitely enough to get you thinking, and definitely is indicative of an issue that could be one of a couple of things. So I'm going to try and pick at that. The first issue is that the current ability appraising in the game itself is clearly wrong, because it is evident that if the current ability, right, now I don't know exactly how current ability is calculated. I've honestly never chased that rabbit hole all the way down. But current ability is supposed to rank a player from a scale of 1 to 200 based off of their current ability, right? But if a team that's entire current ability is below anybody else on any other team is able to finish mid-table consistently, then the current ability is clearly not indicating the ability of a player in the game particularly well. Because this is not tactic dependent, right? I'm not over here setting up this tactic. I didn't manage any of these games. I vacationed the season after making myself unfireable and just had the assistant coach that was already at Nottingham Forest take charge of it, right? I did not try to weight so many things in favor of this team. You know what I mean? Like, I just didn't. But I think the bigger takeaway here is, regardless of the current ability clearly not being a full indication of the impact a player is able to have on the game, even though I wasn't able to replicate the success that other person had in their test, where they actually made a preset tactic designed to exploit their pace in a way that, I didn't. But I think no matter where the team is finishing, as long as this team is not consistently getting relegated, the point is all of the players that are on this team are real. All of them are real, and none of them play at a Premier League level, right? Maybe Owen Otasoe is the closest that you could get, but none of these guys have played for Premier League teams, are likely to play for Premier League teams in their current careers, as far as I know. And the majority are quite some ways away. I mean, in terms of some of the deeper bench players on this team, we're talking about guys that are in non-league in England. And a team of those guys could not show up in the Premier League and get anywhere close to this. Now, obviously, I'm not able to test that in real life, right? I can't convince Nottingham Forest to clean out their team and start signing all of these guys. So we will never know for sure, which is an argument that Football Manager is able to use in its defense for all sort of weird things in the match engine. And I am usually one of the early people to come out and defend them, right? And I get called like a defender of the brand, or like I'm somehow bought off or something. But by and large, I've played Football Manager for the last 5 or 6 years and believed that it was a pretty good game. That has fluctuated. Last year I didn't think was the best game, but this right here, which surprisingly simple test that I encourage you to, if you have the in-game editor, you can do this too. It takes about 30 to 45 minutes to set up. It's kind of fun to look for the players in the player search. You're more than welcome to do this exact same thing, because you'd be doing exactly what I just did, and you'd be joining in this conversation. I don't think it is an unbelievably massive deal, but I don't think it's a small deal either. Like, this isn't EAFC or FIFA where pace is the only thing that matters 99% of the time. But it is clear that it has an unrealistically outsized impact. And the concern is that in FIFA or EAFC, that unrealistic or outsized impact is based on the skill of the player controlling the team, and that it is much easier to just have a player that is way faster than the other team and you just kick the ball up to them. But in Football Manager, that's not what's happening. Like, I can't think of a reason that pace would play an outsized role when you're not controlling the team, other than the fact that the match engine, which is very complex and hard to design. If you guys remember, we had the guy that used to design the match engine, Nick Madden, who since moved on. We used to have him on the channel to talk about certain clips that you would send us about what was going on in the match engine. So I know, having talked to him a bunch about it, how complex the match engine is, but it is clear to me from these, from the person's test on the Reddit, which started a bunch of conversation, from me seeing it with my own eyes, that the match engine is tilted towards pace. It is. And that is the sort of knowledge that can tilt your FM save. If you are Swansea City or Cardiff, you can sign almost every single one of these players. You can build a team that's absolutely unbelievable of guys that look very unassuming, but the results just don't lie. So I imagine if you're actually controlling over the course of the entire year, you can make this a lot better. I'm sure if I was controlling this team the entire year, right, making the right substitutions, shouting encourage every 10 minutes like a good dutiful FM player, we could have gotten well above 12th or 11th. 7th. I mean, shoot that and try and sign players that have this kind of pace or value this kind of pace that have a better all-around game, right? Because when you're actually playing Football Manager, you're not limited by a 116 current ability, right? You can go higher than that and get somebody that's 135 current ability, but plays like they're a 170 apparently. But it's a sign that as fun as Football Manager is, it is far from perfect, obviously. And when it comes to pace and acceleration, what we have long assumed but never been able to prove in a way that was okay for my brain, we've now proved in a way that is okay for my brain. It's broken. And I hope it gets fixed. If you want to watch the original test video, here it is, where we look at 20 pace players that have won at everything else. Those were some really disturbing results, but I think this just kind of drives the point home in such a realistic way because these are actual dudes. But feel free to check that video out. See you guys.